I wanted to talk about Shane Beamer for just a second. A lot of you were asking, hey, what did you think about his comments today, and what's the overall vibe around the South Carolina program going into year two? And I don't think it's the biggest surprise in the world to say that maybe there was a little bit of a starstruck moment, maybe a little bit overwhelmed at times last year for Shane Beamer. That is the SEC, and that's the nature of being a first-year head coach. And I also don't think people fully appreciate how much more is on the plate of a coach, new or old, today than there was even 10 years ago, than there was 20 years ago. The sport has so rapidly changed. If you guys think about it, you have positions in your football program now that didn't exist 5 years ago. You didn't have anyone scouting the transfer portal and scouting college football because the portal didn't exist in the format it does now. And I say all that to say you've got to be a master of so much more now than you ever were before. That's why I think about Venables, a first-time head coach. Beamer, a first-time head coach. Dan Lanning at Oregon, a first-time head coach. And I appreciate how difficult it must be. Can't have experienced it, but I appreciate it. So Shane Beamer comes in year one. That's what he deals with. We always use the metaphor trying to drink water from a fire hose. That's kind of what he tried to do last year. They won about 3 more games than the folks in the desert thought they would. They won more games, truthfully, than I thought they would. And that serves to be a catalyst on the recruiting trail coming out of year one. Here's what it can do going into year two. It can create a false sense of expectation. And I'm not here to say bet the under, bet the under, bet the under on Carolina. What I am here to do, though, is anytime someone just assumes, well, for them to improve, they have to have 8 or more wins, I don't think you've looked at their schedule, and I don't really think sometimes you know how this game works overall. So South Carolina, as I've told you many times, they could be a 7-5 team this year with 5 close losses, and I'd view it as a better accomplishment than 8-4 with 4 blowout losses. Because ultimately the trajectory of the program would still be heading up. But Shane Beamer came in today, and he talked a lot about how there was a lot on my plate last year, and there still is. But what I appreciate about him is, number one, he's appreciative. I think I heard him say thank you about 37 times today, and I wasn't around him all day. But the other part is, I think they've made some good hires, and I think they're starting to get some traction in recruiting, and this has kind of been happening fairly recently. I know on the 24/7 Sports team rankings, they're floating around 30 right now. They'll make a move. They will rapidly ascend those team rankings, but you can feel it. You can feel it from the head coach. You can feel it from the players. You can feel it from some of the support staff, talking to some of the creative guys from Carolina today. Everybody shares the same vision. Some places, and I don't mention them by name, but I've been around programs before, and anyone who's worked in the industry knows what I'm talking about, and fans can sense it too. You ask one person, what's this place about? You ask another person, you ask a third person, you get 3 different answers. That's not the case at South Carolina. They're all singing from the same hymnal, so to speak. Now, there's still a little gap between where they are roster-wise and where they're going to need to be to compete against a Georgia. I'm talking about perennially, or an Alabama, or an LSU. But the thing about it is, as I go back and I look in recent history, I look at what they were capable of doing in the latter portion of the aughts and the early 20-teens. And people think that's not possible anymore, and I disagree with them. I disagree wholeheartedly. If it's been done before, if Carolina dominated the state instead of Clemson before, there's nothing that says that can't happen again. You just have to match the intensity level. You got to match recruiting. You got to match them 10 out of 10 step for step. That can happen. And they're so happy there because they've got their guy. And when you're around the program, this is kind of what I'm getting to, you get why Carolina fans, why South Carolina fans, because I know North Carolina fans hate me saying that, you get why Gamecock fans love him. And you get why a lot of outsiders look at it and they kind of scratch their head and say, what is this guy proven? Like, why do you love him so much? And then you look back out the bubble at them and say, you just don't get it. And that's okay. You're not one of us. You don't have to get it. But in due time, we'll kind of make you get it on the field. That's the vibe that the entire South Carolina program has. And so more so than any, grandiose, like prophetic vision that Shane Beamer shared here today, there was no, huge headline grabber. I know they had the social video this morning. Some of our guys love that. But what I love about him is he gets it. He authentically gets it. He's a guy that everyone loves to be around. So Shane Beamer, South Carolina, I think they're in a really good position.